ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy today. I'm very happy also because we've reached a milestone. We have today the 10th talk of our Unicity Education Hub lecture series, the 10th one since we started last year in October. As you know, we have not been organizing talks only in the technology, scientific fields, as many would have thought, but we have also looked at sustainable development. We've looked at sustainable innovation. We've looked at digital energy. We've looked at artificial intelligence, for sure, but we also looked at journalism. We've also looked at philosophy. And today we're looking at entrepreneurship. Well, when I say entrepreneurship, maybe Sheen wouldn't be happy. Sheen is our guest speaker today, and she might not be happy and saying, I would prefer if you had used squiggly career. So she'll tell us about that. So we've organized the talk, as you know, both in presence or virtually. When I say in presence, I mean to say that the speaker is present on the Pierrefonds campus, or the speaker also intervenes virtually. That is possible, just as participants can attend the talk on our campus, but they can also be present virtually. So that is something that we have done over the past year, and we'll continue on the same format for the talks to come. So as I said, we have the pleasure to welcome this afternoon Dr. Sheen Garib. Sheen will talk from Dubai on an unusual topic, but how much relevant to the Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z? This is something that will be of interest to all of them. The talk is entitled Navigating the Roads Less Traveled, from Medical Scientist to Entrepreneur and Podcaster. Sheen will talk us through what she refers to as a new paradigm, the squiggly career. This is a lot about her personal journey and her own experience. After completing a Master's of Engineering in Material Science from the University of Oxford and a PhD in spinal research from the University of Cambridge, I think the first Mauritian, if I'm not mistaken, to have been both at Oxford and Cambridge, and you'll tell us if I'm right or not. She launched a non-for-profit consultancy Reshape company. She's currently working as Chief Operations Officer of a tech startup based in Dubai in business intelligence. Dr. Sheen Garib is a content creator, business coach, tech entrepreneur, consultant, scientist, and a champion for girls' education. I think I start getting a clearer picture of what a squiggly career can mean when I read this. She also founded Project Access for Refugees and is the host of the women empowerment podcast Dream Girl. So much of activities. I don't know how you find time to engage on all that, Sheen, but we would very much like to hear from you. And so without any further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Danjay. That was very nice of you. And I think, first of all, hello to everyone who's here in person and everyone who's online. This is really fun for me because it's my first talk I'm giving back to Mauritius, which is where I came from initially. And I think I'll just share my screen. And there we go. I think it's still loading. I think we're good now. If you can't see it, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll keep going. So yes, as Danjay said, we will be going through navigating the roads less traveled today. I know that some of you are probably starting to kind of like think about what to do after university, or if you're in a job, maybe thinking about how to pivot. So it'll be relevant to a lot of people. I want to share my experience, but also based on that, what are the skills and what are the tools that I can provide to you if you are at this kind of like decision-making point in your life. So to start with, I want to get to know a little bit better where everyone is. So I think we will go with this poll. I want to know, especially for those who are currently about to finish university, trying to go into the job place for the first time, if you were to say how you're feeling about applying for a job or just generally joining the workforce, what would you say it is? Could we please have the poll on the screen, please? Are you feeling stressed, overwhelmed, nervous, or ambitious, excited, or confident? I just want to know how you feel so that we can then compare at the end how you're feeling after everything we've gone through. So please vote. And I'll give it a few seconds more, and then maybe we can show the screen to everyone now, the results.
We're waiting for a few more seconds. There's a few more left
Sure.
to vote.
Sure. I'm hoping there won't be too many stressed people. I used to be stressed when it was my time about going into the workplace, but let's see.
Nervous.
So you're going to end it?
Can we share the responses? Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. A lot more people nervous and stressed. Okay. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to change you to the excited part by the end of this talk. So let's get started. So obviously, Danja gave you a brief introduction of who I was, but I thought I will give you a little bit more of an overview of my career progression. So of course, I am from Mauritius, born and raised. I left when I was 18. I decided that I wanted to go to the UK because my sister was already there. And then I was looking into the scientific studies because I was already in science. And then I applied for material science and I got into Oxford. So I did 4 years of material science, which was a combined undergrad and master's course. And I got an MN in material science. And at the end of it, I decided that I was going to go into research and I wanted to do a PhD to stay in academia. And initially I applied to do a PhD and I got into both Oxford and Cambridge at this point. And having known Oxford and really loving my time there, I thought that I should just stay and do my PhD there as well. This was the initial plan. And everything was done. And then a month before I was meant to go back to Oxford for my PhD, my funding fell through because the company that was meant to sponsor the PhD went bankrupt. So that did not happen. And it was way too late in the academic year for me to apply for anything else or sort it out. So what Oxford did was they kind of like deferred my entry for the next year. And in the meantime, I could sort out if I wanted to find other sources of funding or if I wanted to go somewhere else. And in that time, I was basically forced to take a gap year and I had to move back to Mauritius. And in that time, I used it to get my driving license because why not? And I also then was trying to see if I wanted to get into a job or if I wanted to go into a PhD somewhere else. And eventually, the Cambridge research team that had offered me a seat beforehand managed to secure some funding for my PhD. So I ended up going to Cambridge to do a PhD in spinal research. And this is how I became the first woman from Mauritius to have gone to Oxford and Cambridge. So this is just to show you that you can plan, but then things don't necessarily turn out how you plan, but it might be better because otherwise I would have just done about 8 years at Oxford, but now I have both Oxford and Cambridge. So then after I moved to Cambridge and I started my PhD, I quickly realized that I didn't want to be in academia and I wanted a bit more than just purely being in the lab and doing science all the time. And I thought, okay, let me try and see what else is out there, what interests me. And that's how I came across consulting. And I love the fact that consulting can also kind of rest in between the intersection of business and science. So then that's when also COVID hit, unfortunately, and a lot of SMEs and small businesses were struggling. And my friends and I set up Reshape, which became the largest student-run consulting company in the UK. We had at some point 350 students that were working with us, and we helped over 60 companies across the world. So this was super exciting, and that's how I knew that I definitely wanted to explore a bit more consulting and what it was. But then at the same time, my content creation journey kind of started. So I started a YouTube channel, as everyone else did during the pandemic. And initially I started by making videos about how I got into Oxford and Cambridge, trying to help people from unconventional backgrounds get into the university. And then I also started doing a bit more videos about professional development, how to apply to consulting, what is consulting. And at the same time, I started the podcast, which is called Dream Girl. And it is a women empowerment podcast where I would invite initially all of my friends and one by one, and we would discuss their unconventional careers. And just to give you a few examples, a friend of mine was training to become an astronaut. One of them was a doctor that then quit medicine entirely to become the first woman to win a gold medal for Great Britain in rowing. So like people were doing really random things, and I love that. So I was sharing these conversations with everyone else. So that's how the podcast was first born, just to showcase the conversations that I was having with my friends. But then eventually it kind of like expanded a lot more. We are currently in season 4 and now in Dubai, but the first 2 seasons were entirely that. And it started to pick up. So then I did more of that content creation on the side. And then this led to my first TEDx, which was on girls' education. This was TEDx Cambridge, and I did it, unfortunately, again, during COVID. So this was done online. I didn't get to get the red carpet, but it was nonetheless a very exciting opportunity. And it's on YouTube and on the TEDx website if you want to check it out. And I talked about, being someone who came from an island, but also being a woman of color, being a woman in everything when it comes to education. And then I finally applied for my first job, and I started working as a project manager at the Side Business School, which is the business school of Oxford University. And at that time, it was just a remote job that I needed before I found a proper job. So it was kind of a little gap filler in between, but it was nonetheless a very exciting opportunity where I got to meet over like 900 students from across the world. And we were just doing like an international competition called Map the System, which was really cool. But then during that time, I was also applying for consulting jobs, and I finally got my consulting job, which was a strategy consultant for Oliver Wyman. And that's what moved me to Dubai. I initially got the role for the London office, but they then mentioned that there's also an opening in the Dubai office, which is more money and no taxes. And of course, it's closer to home, which is Mauritius. So it was really a no-brainer. And that's what brought me to Dubai 2 years ago now, which was in 2021. And I loved it. It was a very interesting experience because I got to work on projects with ministers, with zoologists, with literally such random projects. And I worked on the creation of a new smart city in Saudi Arabia. I worked on bringing back an extinct species of cheetah. I worked on creating the medical system for a whole country. So it was really exciting work, but the work-life balance was not necessarily what I wanted. Sometimes we would work 14 to 18 hours per day. So that's quite long. And I could not sustain that in the long run, especially because at the same time, my content creation was picking up. I was getting brand deals. I was getting sponsored on the YouTube and the podcast. So I wanted to do a lot more of that. And I am a very creative person, but I had no energy and no time left after my job. So that's when I knew that it might be time to now move. And when I was thinking about the move, then I thought I would want to now be at the intersection where I could use all of my business knowledge from being a consultant, from being a manager. But I also wanted a little bit more about the content creation side. And that's when I then joined a media company as the COO. It was newly starting up, and it was run by the Emirati influencer called Khalid Al Ameri. So he has a huge following of 17 million, but he wanted to build a business around his personal brand. And I worked with him for a bit on that for 6 months. We tried to set up the business around his brand. And then after that, I realized that I wanted to be a bit more into tech because I still had my PhD in science background, and I was learning a lot more about tech, and AI was becoming a lot more relevant in today's time. So I really wanted to kind of like dip my toe into that world as well. So then I joined a startup now in Dubai in the DIFC called Trends, which is also actually a Mauritian-born startup. So initially started there, but they're now here, and we work on business intelligence, so merging AI, marketing, and customer interest into kind of like this new era of marketing to help brands make better decisions. And so, yeah, so that's that. And when we think about where I am today, so wrap up, I am still the CEO of the tech startup Trends. Dream Girl, as I said, season 4 is now ongoing. And I also do speaking gigs, and I'm also an adjunct lecturer at Middlesex in Dubai, where I teach the future of technology and also how social media will be changing the future of work. And I also do executive teaching workshops on women in leadership. And I'm a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts UK, which was amazing, being awarded that recently, like 2 months ago. So that's been nice. And also the podcast itself, the last season went a little bit viral. We got over 20 million views across platforms, and this has like blown up my social media. So on Instagram, we recently hit 100,000 followers, and a lot of the videos have now officially gone viral, which is super exciting. And the numbers, I just put the numbers there because just to show that, you know, even people tend to think that social media kind of like explodes more for like lifestyle, entertainment, and like pranks, but it is not. I am fully podcast talking about women and talking about careers and professional development. And these videos went viral, which is super cool because it's a very niche topic, but to know that a lot of people kind of like resonated with that and wanted to share that with other people meant that, you know, we are doing something good at the end of the day. So that's kind of like where I am today. And you know, I love this quote by Steve Jobs where he talks about how you cannot really connect the dots looking forward. It's only after everything has happened and you look back that you can kind of like connect the dots and see how things were working in your favor. And I love that because when I look at my journey, you might think that, oh, this was very smooth transition one to the other, but it really wasn't. It was filled with a lot of challenges, a lot of setbacks, a lot of disappointments and heartbreaks. But it's just a question of now looking back. I know that, for example, me not getting into Oxford PhD was a good thing because it meant that I went to Cambridge, and getting into Oliver Wyman, which was my dream, was not the right fit for me and I had to leave. So it's a lot of those things where, you know, we can plan and plan as much as we want, and we might think that this thing is what we want, but sometimes things don't work out and other things happen, and that's absolutely fine because in the future it all comes together and makes sense. And I think now looking back on my career, there are different things that helped me a lot. And whenever I think about my career personally, which is quite helpful, a mentor of mine gave me this outlook on life, which is you need to look at your operational principles, which is how do you operate on a day-to-day basis? What helps you create your day-to-day kind of like routine and what helps you improve? But you also have your pivot points principles, which is whenever you need to make a big life decision, a big change, then what are the things that will help you with that decision-making process? So I will go through this in terms of like the principles, the action that I took and the result, and with very actionable examples from what we just went through. So the first one obviously is learning. Whether you are at university, whether you're at work, there needs to be constant learning. And of course, for me, that was initially while I was at university, I knew that I had to develop my expertise and learn so many transferable skills that even if I wanted to shift away from what I was doing, I had the skill set needed in order to fit into anywhere, right? And obviously you get a strong competency, you have all of the credibility that you need in order to go for a job or pitch yourself in any situation tomorrow. Then there's the aspect of community. And this I cannot stress enough, that your community is so important. You know, your network is your net worth. And I think there's no amount of times I can say this that is enough, because for me, that has changed my life entirely. First of all, obviously, I grew my online community. I have my podcast guests and I have my professional community that I have built as well. But nurturing that network and expanding your connections is super helpful, because not only does it expand your horizons, but it also creates new opportunities for you, and it brings the mentors into your life. It brings people that can help you into your life. And that is super, super important. The next thing is giving. And I think this is a little bit more to do with personal values and the aspect of giving back, which is also really important whenever, especially for me. And that's what Project Access was. So initially, Project Access was just helping anyone from unconventional backgrounds to get into university. But then I set up Project Access for refugees, where we were helping refugee students get into Oxford and Cambridge, which was not happening at the time. And it wasn't just a question of money, it was a question of lack of accessibility. So this for me was important because I want to see positive impact. I want to see change. I want to see things where I'm using all of my unfair advantages to help others. So this was, for me, very important. Now, when it comes to pivot points, whenever I had to make very important life decision, for example, whenever the whole Oxford and Cambridge thing happened in the middle with a forced gap year, you need courage. You need to do things that scare you. And it's just that, yes, it's true that you can get through life without resilience, but it's not very pleasant whenever setbacks happen, whenever you're trying to work towards something, but it doesn't happen. Then, you know, the heartbreak and the disappointment is so heavy on you that you need to be able to bounce back a little bit quicker. Of course, it's fine to like feel sad and disappointed when things don't work out, but it's important to be able to bounce back and to learn from whatever happened. So having courage to do that will bring resilience. And for me, that was one important pillar, I guess, of what helps me make important decisions. And of course, there's intuition. You can be courageous, but what are you showing courage for? You need to know what is your gut feeling about things. What is your true authentic self, right? And how do you then follow that path is through courage. So for example, me, when I left consulting to go into the startup world, that was a very big decision because I left a very cushy salary, very good benefits, you know, like very well established company where you have social status, power, money, and all of these things, and leaving all of that behind for a bit of like a shaky lifestyle as a startup person. But for me, that was important because that's what my authentic self was. So knowing that gave me the courage to make that jump, even though if on the surface, it didn't look like the best decision to make. And finally, rebuilding. It's really important to know that you can rebuild at any time, because even for me, the fact that I trained my whole life for science until I finished my PhD, I was fully trained in science. But then I relearned a new trade entirely, which is online content creation, how to be an influencer, if you want to call that. And I had to teach myself filming, learning about tech, learning about how to edit, how to understand the algorithm of different social media. So all of that was a completely different trade that people are fully trained in, right? So, but knowing that this is a skill that I want to learn means that now I am more adaptable, means that now I can keep up with whatever is coming up as new trends in the workforce. So ability to rebuild is also very, very important. So now this was all about me. I've spoken a lot about myself. I want to now tell you, what does this mean for you, right? Okay, so you've heard about my journey, how it has been super squiggly, and I went through a lot of different iterations until I got to where I am today. And even today, when someone asks me, what do you do for a job? It's very hard for me to give an answer because I am not one thing. There are so many aspects to who I am. But I want to show you what does that mean, because not everybody has the same journey. Okay, so I will walk you through 4 examples of 4 hypothetical people. I'm not talking about anyone in particular. And we're just going to go through what their careers were and how does that change in terms of the growth mindset and the squiggly career and everything to do with that. So For example, if we take Isabella, she just went to MIT, did computer science, and then while at university was very active and did hackathons, competitions, and kept learning new skills, which meant that her career growth was on the rise. And then she got a job into information security post-university. But then once she got into the job, she completely stopped updating her knowledge and skills. Okay, and she just like completely stabilized in her career growth, which meant that there's no growth anymore, really. It just plateaus. And that meant that she doesn't get any promotion. Her salary kind of like just increased with inflation, but that said, there's no like big jump into where she can get to. And this is obviously a bit of a dramatic situation where we're saying that she goes redundant due to restructuring eventually. So in this situation, we can see that the career plateaued post-university because there was no learning and growth that kept going on. And this might not be the most fulfilling option. And this is definitely an example that we might want to avoid whenever we are in the workplace. But now let's look at a second person. Let's look at Oliver. Oliver, let's say, went to NUS, did business administration, at university, very active, did business challenges, volunteered, did a lot of nonprofit work, and then after that became a business consultant at university, and he put a lot of effort in learning new skills, in meeting his mentors, in networking, and understanding how to climb the corporate ladder. And obviously, he successfully then climbed that corporate ladder. Excuse me. And he was then promoted to a fee earning partner. He's making a lot of money. This is not bad, right? So this is not necessarily a bad outcome. This is good. So this is kind of like what majority of people think that they should do. And this is what I thought I should do when I was at university, which was just keep going to a job and just climb the corporate ladder. This is not bad at all. Linear growth, they continue to learn and develop, and it is more fulfilling and rewarding than the first situation, for sure. But now let's look at a third one. So here we have Mo. Let's say he went to Bath, did sports and exercise science, but then he became a personal trainer at a local gym. He decided that he wanted to learn the trade of the business by being part of someone else's business first and putting into practice what he had learned at university. And then after that, he thought, okay, I'm just going to make the jump. I don't want to be working for someone else my whole life. I want to set up my own sports club studio where he's now bringing his like real life work experience together with his degree. And he's thinking, let's build something different. And he thought that, he spoke with mentors and everything. And he thought that he would go exactly the same path as the guy before us, but he didn't, right? For him, it became then he became an executive coach to athletes now where, he has this unexpected career growth because he is doing something for himself, which is incredible. He has an exponential growth. He's learning so much. He's making a lot of money, mostly because he opened himself to new experiences. And this is what the growth mindset is, by the way. So now we'll come back to him in a bit, but let's go into Maya's career, which is the squiggly career. So let's say Maya did architecture at AUS, which is in the UAE. And then after that, she decided that, one second, I just want to sell summaries and designs online. I don't really want to work for anyone else. And then based on that, she realizes that, okay, maybe I do need some corporate experiences. So then she goes to an architectural firm. She learns a little bit there. But then she decides that, okay, I am more of a creative person and my design inspirations come from makeup. So she decides to leave that job and take a makeup course to see if this is something that is good for her. And eventually she starts a lipstick brand where she also combines her architectural design that she initially learned at university and at her corporate job to create very unique packaging, which means that now her lipstick is doing very well. And she sells it to a large beauty industry leader, makes a lot of money. And now from that money, she's now interested in law. So she becomes like a lawyer, like property lawyer. So it keeps changing. Right? And this is multi-directional, and this is exactly what we mean by a squiggly career. There is more choice, there's no linear path, and there's a lot of freedom. So now, I love this quote, by the way. This is from Michelle Obama, exactly what I was saying, which is the most useless question you can ask a child is what you want to be when you're an adult. Because it's like saying growing up is finite, and at some point you become something, and that's the end. And that's exactly what we need to avoid, especially with the new generation. Now, if we were to compare these 4 people that we just went through. So the first one was the fixed mindset, which just only learned at university and then plateaued in their workforce. The second one is the growth mindset of someone just climbing the corporate ladder. The third one is high growth, where someone took a lot of risk and decided, I'm just going to try and become different in my industry. And the final one is the squiggly growth, where they didn't stick to any career per se. But now if we were to say, let's look at how each of these individuals look at the worldview or difficulties or success. So in terms of worldview, if you're in a fixed mindset, you don't see yourself as changeable. You think you're stuck, and therefore that's it. So you're not very adaptable. But if you're in a growth mindset, you do see yourself as capable of significant growth, but not in everything. You see yourself having opportunities to grow in your own domain. But if you have high growth, you think that you can grow in basically anything and you can change your most basic characteristics, which means that you're very adaptable. And obviously, someone with a squiggly growth mindset, they just think that growth is not linear. So there's no ladder to climb per se. It's just about experiencing more and more and just finding, other ways of getting where you want to be. Forget the door, find a window kind of vibe, And now if you were to look at the difficulties and obstacles, someone who has a fixed mindset, they will give up immediately if they are faced with a challenge. And obviously I don't need to tell you why this is not a good approach to life, because there is a challenge at every corner, right? But if you have a growth mindset, you do recognize that anything that you want to learn will take time. So whatever you are training towards as you're climbing the ladder, you expect it to take time, so you put in the effort towards it. But if you have a high growth mindset, you persist even when things don't go right. And you understand that setbacks will happen. And then what do you do with that setback is how do you then achieve mastery by finding another way of doing that. So they will persist for even longer whenever things don't go right. But someone with a squiggly growth mindset, they will just find innovative ways and new ways of learning and solving problems. They will not just first of all, setbacks should not put you off. They will be like, okay, this is a challenge. How do we then solve this in a new way? How do I, find a new solution that has not been done before? And again, this brings us back to the initial thing that we discussed, which was how can you be courageous? How do you know what your intuition is? And how do you then tackle the difficulties? And finally, when it comes to the success of others, someone with a fixed mindset will always feel threatened because they're always comparing themselves with others, and they do not believe in abundance. They believe that everything is limited. So if someone else is winning, it means they can't win. But someone with a growth mindset will find lessons and inspiration from someone else's success, for example. And especially when there are people who are climbing the ladder, they really look up to people who are ahead of them in that journey. And when it comes to high growth, they just actively seek out masters and experts who they want to learn from, and they want to learn their secrets, which is exactly what Mo did when he was leaving the studio and built his own gym, right? He learned from someone else and then built it for himself. And finally, the squiggly growth mindset, they see abundance and opportunity everywhere, and they just know that anything and everything is possible. And when someone else is winning, it means that there's now more opportunity for others to win. So I hope that this has convinced you that even though the growth mindset itself makes sense, but having a high growth mindset or even a squiggly growth mindset is very important in life when it comes to the way you view the world, the way you tackle difficulties and obstacles, and even the way you perceive everything around you when it comes to success. And now, taking all of this into account, knowing what is possible and how to go into the world, but what does the world look like these days? There's so much change happening. First of all, when we look at how people feel about work these days, there is a 20% increase in job satisfaction over the past 13 years. But the interesting fact here is that this is due to people switching their jobs more frequently. Therefore, now people are actively thinking, this does not suit my needs anymore. This is not what I want, so I'm going to switch. And the overall happiness and job satisfaction is therefore going up. And also now 6 out of 10 employees are quiet quitting their jobs, which is very interesting. Quiet quitting, if you have not encountered the term before, it means that you just do the bare minimum at work and you're not willing to go above and beyond because you don't care anymore. You're just going to do the minimum work that will make sure that you are paid. So this means that people are very, very unhappy if they are quiet quitting in their jobs and they're just leaving. So what's the point of working somewhere where you're not happy, especially given that we spend so much time of our youth in a workplace? We need to be happy where we are. And also, finally, even the satisfaction level of women in the workforce is going down by 4%. And this has to do with less satisfactory job security and benefits such as pay and promotions, and also when it comes to maternity leave and childcare. So all of this is not necessarily ticking the boxes. So people are a little bit less happy about work. So all of this is telling us that we are working more towards flexibility. We're working more towards finding true satisfaction and true happiness when we're looking for a job. And now when we look at the changing nature of work itself, we've all heard of AI, we've all heard of Web3 and how so many of these are going to replace whatever we're doing ourselves as human beings. But now 80% of businesses have been said to that will focus on automation of their processes in the next 7 years, which means automation means like losing jobs, right? It means that people will now be replaced and all of this will be automated. 80% of businesses, that is so much. Imagine the number of jobs that are at risk because of this. And also 44% of workers' skills are expected to change in the next 5 years. So therefore, as an employee, your skills will be expected to change while you are in your current role. So this means that, again, if you're not adaptable, if you cannot change, if you cannot learn whatever is going on around you, you are stuck, and redundancy is going to become a very real thing. And even the last thing, which is that now more people want to work hybrid and remote, which means that 90% increase in productivity when people are working remotely. Again, this COVID has shown us this, that we can work remotely now. So you don't need to have a job attached to your geographical location. So the whole world is literally your oyster when you're looking for a job. So all of this means that not only are people's sentiments about work changing, but the nature of work is also changing. So now, what does this mean when we think about the future of work itself as an employee? Well, in the next 7 years, believe it or not, 85% of the jobs that will be available on the market don't even exist today. Think about that. 85% of the jobs that will be on the market in 7 years don't even exist today. So therefore, nobody's training for these jobs. No one is learning anything about these jobs because they don't even exist yet. So therefore, there will be a very rapid need to learn new skills, a very rapid need to be able to adapt and understand how to fit whatever skill set you have already into a new job. And people will increasingly have more than 10 jobs by the time they're 38. Imagine more than 10 jobs. I mean, I'm on the right track for that. More than 10 jobs by the time you're 38, which means people are constantly changing their jobs and their industries. And now 75% of companies are adopting big data, cloud computing, AI, and it will be even more than that in the next 5 years. Let's be honest, it's going to be 100%, because for companies to stay relevant, they will have to keep up with all the technological changes that are happening in the world. So from all of this, I guess now you can appreciate that there is a big need to not be stuck in whatever we've learned or whatever job you're in. We need to be adaptable and we need to find satisfaction in where we are. So what does this mean for you now in terms of anyone who is at this brink of like looking for jobs? How do you make sure that you are adaptable and you are someone that will thrive in the workplace? So the first thing is to reflect. So think about your strengths and interest. What do you have and what do you want to bring in the world? And this is exercise that I have learned from a friend of mine, which we always do whenever we have to make big decisions, which is have 3 different buckets. And the first one should be, what are your values? What do you care about? What are your values? So what kind of change do you want to bring about in the world? The second one is, what causes do you care about? So is it, do you care about women empowerment? Do you care about making tech more accessible? What is it? And then the third one is, what medium do you want to use for this? So therefore, it kind of like shows you, what can you bring to the table? What do you care about? And therefore, how do you do it? And that's a lot of self-reflection that needs to be done to understand, okay, now this is where I need to be looking in order to get a job in, so to ensure satisfaction. The second one is explore. And you need to explore different career and educational options, whether you're going into further education or getting a job, and all of these big things go to like career expositions, explore info sessions, career talks, and also go to like actually the workplace that you're interested in, go to the office, see if you can talk to anybody, you can shadow anyone, but you need to learn about what are the different jobs out there and how does that fit into number one, which is the things that you care about. And then the third one is to develop yourself. So now that you know what are the jobs available, now that you know where you want to be, what you care about, then what do you need in terms of skills and experience in order to be eligible for a job in these places? And whether it is public speaking, job shadowing, internships, anything of that, you need to build your resume and your CV in order to be eligible for these things. And based on your conversations that you will have and the information that you're getting online, you can learn everything and anything now, even on YouTube. Not me saying this as a YouTuber, but anything you can learn on YouTube for free. So whatever skill you want to learn, there is someone out there teaching it for free. So you can learn everything online. And finally, again, I will say the same thing, which is your network is your net worth. So find the people that will lead you to the right opportunities. And this can be professional networking through LinkedIn, through conferences, through professional associations, whatever it is, you need to go out there and speak to people. The worst case scenario, someone will say no. The best case scenario, you have a conversation. So I've always reached out to people. I send a message on LinkedIn, I call DM people, and I always get a response. Even if someone will say, I'm too busy, that's fine, it's okay. It's a game of numbers here. So the more you send, the more likely it is that you will get a response. So do build that network that will then help you whenever it comes to finding the right job in the right place. So I think that's basically it. We have the poll time again now, and I would love to see how do you feel now after everything I've said? How do you feel about applying for a job post-university? Maybe if we can send the poll again. Perfect. We'll give it a few seconds. Whenever you're ready to share the results.
We are waiting for a few more, and then we'll share.
Okay, sure.
I think we can end the poll. It's clear.
Okay, less nervous. I'm glad. Thank you so much. So now we're more ambitious and excited and confident. That's amazing. So I guess that's practically it from me now. And thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, I'll be very happy to take them on board now.
Thanks. Thank you, Sheen. Yeah, thank you, Sheen. It's been a really great talk, and we really appreciate how you moved, taking your example and moving to the bigger picture. I think has given a lot of not only getting people from less nervous to more ambitious, but also giving them some real clues of how to face the world of work. I think that's very important. And we also see a lot of problems, in our corporates we see that people are coming, hopefully not, you know, in the Medellin group, but you know, we hear about a lot of people moving from one company to the other, you know, in just spending a year or 2 years. We try to keep people here. I hope they're all happy and not nervous, and even if they're all very, you know, ambitious, they would like to stay and do the work. If I can start with the first question and probably then move to the audience, Sheen.
Yes.
You mentioned in one of your slides that it's important to look at you know, the world of opportunities. What opportunities you have, and that is what also drives you in your choice. Now, if I bring this to the Mauritian context, you would agree with me that the opportunities that you will have, let's say in the UK, compared to the Mauritian context, will not be the same. So how does that influence someone in Mauritius in the choice or in their choice? How does that, you know, what sort of argument you would have to convince those people that they you know, should go from one place to another and looking to be satisfied? So what is your take on that?
Sure. Thank you for the question. I think, yes, you're correct that opportunities are very different when we're talking about different countries. But at the same time, I do still think that even if you're in Mauritius, if you don't like where you are, there are other ways of finding a job and going somewhere else. But also today, as I said, most people are working remotely. And even in Dubai right now, most of the startups, their team, no one is here. Everyone is from around the world. So when you're looking for jobs and opportunities, you can look globally these days because no one requires you really anymore other than big corporations. But normal jobs like startups and entrepreneurs, they don't require their team to be there in person. So you can be based wherever. And so it's just about looking in the right places for opportunities. So you could be in Mauritius, but working for a company based in the US or the UK, whatever it is, as long as you know what you're looking for and you're looking in the right places and you have the right network, you will find the right opportunity. But again, the first step is knowing what you want to do and what are you looking for. And then after that, whether you look locally or you look globally is up to you, but the opportunities are out there. But it is overwhelming when you just think, oh, where do I start? That's very normal. But to avoid that is you need to have a clear idea of what are you looking for, you know, such that even when you're going to speak to people and asking for help, you can ask for very specific assistance and for very specific guided help. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think you're right. If we can move to some questions, if there are any. I don't see any here present. If you have any question that you'd like to ask Sheen.
No questions.
Yes. Yeah.
So based on the different scenarios that you put through the Isabella, Mayambo, etc. So do you think that the win, the motto for somebody today is to move and to take the challenges through his life or his or her life, and not to stay stagnant at some point in time, have a 5-year, 6-year stand at a company, or have it 2 years, 3 years? What's your thought about your thinking about that?
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, so honestly, this is a very hard question to answer because everyone has very different things they're looking for in their career. Some people might be looking for stability, which is absolutely fine, and you just want to be where you are and you're happy with that. But if you are someone who is looking for exponential growth in your career and you're looking for satisfaction, then you need to be constantly learning and growing and finding new things. And also, as I told you, the nature of work is changing itself. And in order to protect yourself, to make sure that you don't become redundant, or your skill set is not needed anymore, or there is literally your job doesn't exist, then what do you do? In order to not be forced to make that decision, it's good to be adaptable yourself. So So then, yes, constant learning and knowing where you want to be again is extremely important, so that whatever is coming your way, or you know that you have the right skill set, even if you're made redundant tomorrow, you know that, okay, well, I have all of these skills that I can now apply somewhere else, and I know that I'm not fixed to this sector that maybe no longer exists anymore. So it's a question of making, if you are interested in making yourself, adaptable, and putting yourself into this path where you can keep growing and earning more and becoming, achieving financial freedom, then definitely yes, squiggly is the way to go.
Yeah. So the key thing that you mentioned, if I get it well, is that you got to be also very much involved in learning new skills, and not just stay in your fixed mindset. That is something important. And second, I think it's not just a question of moving to another thing just for the sake of getting a few more hundreds of dollars, or a few more hundreds of rupees. I think that is also important. I saw that in 2 or 3 slides you referred to the book by Carol Dweck, and if I recall, it was about the fixed or the growth mindset.
Yes.
And I had the chance of reading the book during my 2 weeks vacation recently, and I even commented on that on a post on LinkedIn, saying that Carol Dweck is very right, because what she says is, in the growth mindset, what counts is the attitude of people. And I'm very happy that you rated. I mean, you said that poll where you could easily see what is the mindset of people. So all this boils down to real concrete thing, and the way to assess the people we have in front of you is to also get to their mindset. So that was very interesting. And well, by the time we have discussed anything that you would like to, so I see a question online saying that I'd love to hear your opinion how we can find our values and better decide between 2 choices in life, for example.
Okay.
So the question is about how we find our values and better decide between 2 choices.
Oh, so there are loads of these exercises online about how to find your values, right? And I think one of them is really knowing what are the things that you care about personally. And a lot of times this has to do with your personal experience. So for me, being the first girl from Mauritius to have gone to Oxford and Cambridge meant that I cared a lot about access to education for girls. And then when I went to the workplace, seeing that women are not necessarily treated the same way meant that women empowerment and professional development became something that I cared about. This was my value system around this. And so sitting down and having this internal discussion of what are the things that I personally care about, then that's quite important to have. And I know there are so many exercises online. I remember a friend of mine recently, she quit her job after 10 years of being a banker and decided to become a YouTuber, very successful one. But she did this exercise online that helped her do this. And, it was just a random planner online that she found and asked you questions about if money was no longer a thing, where every job that you did, you would get paid the same amount as everyone else, what would you do? Would you still be doing the job you're doing? Would you still be on that path that you are on? Probably not. And it is scary, because when it comes to doctors, apparently 92% of doctors say they wouldn't be doctors if money was not the case. So this just goes to show that there are a lot of other factors that really kind of like forces our decision rather than what we care about and what we want to do. So sitting down and doing this value assessment is very important. And when it comes to deciding between 2 choices in life, I think that's a very good question. And I think it really depends on what the choices are. But I think always having the pros and cons list is very important to have. So what I did every time was to think, okay, what are the pros and cons for this specific thing? What for option A, pros and cons, option B, pros and cons. But then overall as well, the second part of this is to assess what is the worst case scenario if I make the jump to option A. What is the worst case scenario? And if that happens, what's my backup plan? And the same thing for the second option. And that means that now you will it will kind of become a bit clearer which one is the easiest option. And that's my approach to this.
I think that when we talk of the values we have, we also need to talk of how we add value to the place of work. I think that's also important. I mean, to have kind of, introspect and see how we're really adding value and what are we bringing, not just through the basic skills we have, but more than that, how we add value to the place of work. And I think that by doing this, we also derive satisfaction. Because if we think that we can add value, it means that we feel happy about what we're doing.
100%.
So I'm not sure. I mean, we do this sort of exercise, in our own job. So that is also important. I just would like to take this opportunity to also mention that that Sheen will be with us for a workshop. And that workshop will be held, I'm just checking the dates. I think it will be 9th and 10th November. Yeah, 9th and 10th November. Sheen will be at Unicity on our Pierrefonds campus and will be delivering a workshop on women leadership program. So you will have an opportunity to learn more about women leadership and all the good work Sheen is doing. You can get all the details on our website, and you can register for the workshop. I think that would be something really interesting, and meeting Sheen personally would be also good.
That would be fun. It's very interactive. We're currently working on it, and it's going to be very interactive, very fun. So do join us.
Yeah, and it will be a 2-day workshop,
Yes.
right? So all of you, well, when we say women leadership, it's not restricted to only women participation. I'm sure many here would like to also join. Niven is also nodding in the right way. So thank you, Niven. You'll be one of our participants. So Sheen, it was great having you, and we thank you for your time. Fortunately, we're on the same time zone, so no time difference between Dubai and Mauritius. So we look forward to your workshop now and to welcoming you in person on 8th, 9th November. And until then, thank you again for your time and for a wonderful talk.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.